welcome to a session on technology and travel vis-a-vis MICE, powered by MICE Affairs Media. So today we are going to discuss with our technical experts on the role of technology and travel and MICE sector in the coming times. So let me announce today's panelists who have taken out time for this session today, starting with Mr. Jayachandra Ramesh from Sarcon Technologies. Jayachandra is CEO of Sarcon Technologies. Next in line is Mr. Dhruv Chauhan, co-founder for Travelexic. Mr. Jay Saraswat, founder and CEO, Webmobril Technologies. And Narayan Mallapur, CEO and co-founder, Innowayt. And last but not the least, Gokul Bajaj, Director of Sales, Cvent. So starting with the first question, without wasting much time, that what kind of changes we see in the travel domain going forward? So taking expert views on the same and starting with Jay Chandra to start the session. So Jay, over to you. Thank you.
More domestic travel than international travel, right? That's a given to start with. Second, I think when you talk about travel and tourism, I think ecotourism is going to start booming because people would want to go to non-crowded spaces. So that's something that people might want to look at. The second is as travel professionals, you need to actually break the perception on ecotourism, right? And figure what it takes to bridge the gap between ecotourism and luxury tourism, so that it becomes mainstream. And I think the last point, what travel guys would have to keep in mind is while this lockdown has happened, you've seen that your pollution has gone down, right? Your different parameters for pollution, global warming, all of them have gone down. So airlines and other businesses are going to be under serious pressure to basically get their act together in terms of being more environmentally conscious. So as tour operators, right, travel agencies, you need to watch them carefully to see how are they adapting so that you change your game accordingly. Finally, when you talk about the MICE space, I think people will not start traveling for large events, at least for 9 to 12 months from now. Could be longer. So what might just happen is if you have domestic travel happening just for smaller events, you might want to consider doing a large event in separate places parallelly, right? As physical events. And even when you talk about closing deals, right, that is businesses that you're trying to close, that too might not involve a lot of business travel. You need to start getting, I guess, used to closing deals virtually, right? So I think, yeah.
All right, thanks Jay for your inputs. Second, moving on to Dhruv. Dhruv has been working in the travel space for quite some time. So Dhruv, what do you foresee the future of travel in terms of the change in pattern going forward? Over to you.
So I completely agree with Jayachandra. So domestic is going to be is more likely to kickstart once the lockdowns are lifted. But even there, I feel it'll be a very measured approach by the government. So we are talking about green corridors being created. So channel traffic to specific places. Say for example, Himachal for the past 5 days hasn't had any cases reported. So there's a good chance if this trend kind of continues from places say like nearby Himachal, there could be traffic moving towards Himachal. But either way, I do feel offbeat destinations are going to be preferred because again, sparsely populated people, social distancing is going to continue to remain a norm even once the restrictions are lifted. So people would prefer traveling to areas where there are less people. Second, hygiene factor is going to be the topic of discussion. Everyone, all customers, if they're traveling through tour operators, if they're going directly to vendors, the only thing they're going to be talking about is what are you doing to ensure this place is COVID free and we don't contract it. Third, people taking the roads. I see a lot of people doing self drives. So their food, people might be carrying their own foods. They would not want to risk stopping on highway outlets and risking the chance of exposure. Fourth, tour operators also, I feel those tour operators are going to be better placed to have their who have their own captive customer base. Simple reason, people are not going to be looking to really experiment with new operators. So if they look at going to a tour operator, they'll probably pick up somebody they've already known, whose word they trust, who is an authority figure to them. And only when he tells them this is safe to go, they'll probably go to that place. So that would be my take.
Sure. Thanks, Dhruv. Thanks for your inputs. Now moving on to our next panelist, Gokul, can I invite you for your inputs on a bit on mice, if you can touch base.
Sure. So let me pick up from where we left off. So I think I agree that there will be a lot of skepticism around travel, of course, even when things start to unfold, because even with a decline or plateau in the number of cases, I think there will be a lot of growing skepticism for people to step out. So I think the biggest differentiator, usually has been the price and the value that you get in return. But I think the biggest factor that people will be looking at would be, like my colleague pointed out, would be hygiene, health, and safety. So that's something that people should be heavily pressing on when they reach out to their audience. On the MySpace, we're seeing a similar trend. So because see, MICE is again a congregation. People need to come together. So if there are restrictions on travel, MICE does get affected. But what a lot of planners have started doing is they've realized that meetings and events is the second largest contributor of business after a company's website. So meetings and events have to happen. Of course, the efficacy can't be as much as it in-person meets. So what a lot of planners are doing is they're pivoting to virtual events. And I think a classic example is what's happening today. Right? Because eventually people want to get their word out there. They have objectives aligned with their events. It could be lead generation, could be brand building, or whatever, is the closest to their objectives. And that's being met by virtual events, right? We've seen people move their entire exhibition/conference to a virtual event. So they're creating immersive experiences virtually. And I think with internet accessible to billions of people now, everybody's on this. It is the difficult part is to just keep your audience engaged, but the easy part is to get everyone on that platform. So it is less cost, less risk, and people can immediately jump on that bandwagon. So we have started seeing a lot of planners leveraging them, and it is driving success around their events.
Sure. Thank you, Gokul. By your point that before this lockdown started, nobody was aware of such digital platforms or video conferencing tools, even including me as well. So once this lockdown started, we have installed these apps and started using it. Yeah, very well said. So one has to adopt as the time changes. So I want to take a quick bite from Jay from Webmobril. Jay has been working in the mice space for quite some time now with some leading companies. So Jay, what changes do you foresee in the travel front going forward? Over to you.
Thanks, Sachin. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me here. I can divide this the entire thing, and I would try to simplify it very much. These two things would impact the change and behavior will impact two things. One is it will be dependent upon the pocket, and the other would be the mind of a traveler. So definitely there will be a huge change in the travel pattern, or say the travel behavior of a traveler. As after this pandemic, the emotional sense, or you can say the inner soul of the individual will be very much refrain them to travel. Why? Because I personally feel there is no vaccination came in as of date. So as an individual traveler or as a corporate, I might not plan for a travel in coming months or so. So that's something which every traveler or a corporate will have in back of their mind. That's one. If I come to the economy, if I come to the pocket of a traveler or a corporate, if you look at it this way, the GDP of the country has been fallen to its worst in last 30 years, which means the middle class and the upper middle class, these people are very hesitant in investing the money on the leisure trips. That's the second thing I have in my mind. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the essentials, companies like FMCG, medical equipments, and pharma companies, the MICE sector will definitely be, have some incentive plan for these companies. So they should be preparing some, I'm sure they will have some custom products, some packages for them going forward. So there is one opportunity for these pharma companies, FMCGs, and medical equipment companies for the MICE sector, which we should be focusing on. So this will change our trend a little bit on both the sides. I would agree to Gokul and Dhruv again. As they said, the domestic market will be the very much in target soon after the pandemic finishes, and which means people will be looking at if you talk about India, we do not see very much premium hotel, or I would say the lavish life, which you see in Europe and US. So that's one of the factors travel companies should be working on. on offering, premium packages, maybe, 5-star or such offers. So that's pretty much, for the changing trends and pattern.
Sure. Thank you, Jay. Very valid points. I think everybody, I mean, out of all webinars which are being going on, the crux is domestic travel is going to come back the very first thing in any space. So that's what everybody is looking forward to, and I think government is also conducting some webinars on that front as well. So taking the last views, inviting Narayan Malapur. Narayan, can you hear us? All right. Wait a minute.
You're on mute, sir.
All right. So inviting Narayan to share his views. Over to you, Narayan.
Sure. Sachin, thank you for having me here. Let's admit this was something out of the blue. Nobody had expected this at all. We had great expectations for 2020, right? And today, just 3 months later, that we are all talking of survival. It was a double whammy in two aspects. The first is the travel sector, the first to get hit whenever there's any issue or a problem anywhere across the globe. The second would be the economy itself has got hurt globally, that the travel would be the most impacted as well as the last to recover, right? And how travel actually affects others as well, not only pertaining to this domain or industry. One example is between just Expedia and Google, last year they have spent about 11 billion on marketing spend and on Google. So probably this year it'll go down by at least 50%, if not more, which indicates that Google is also affected by almost $5.5 billion just from these two travel companies. So the impact is something to be noted and tremendous. Other two aspects that we must consider are one is the changes is inevitable, and at the same time, human memory is very short, right? So though we say in travel this will change or that will change, or we assume that it will change in the next 2 months or 6 months or 9 months, that human memory is very short. So maybe temporarily things might change and some would remain permanent. But one also there are two aspects again. One is which is under your control, and the second is beyond your control. So what is not under our control is basically the border controls between countries or states, visa and immigration rules, pre-boarding processes, seats on flights. So people expect that the middle seats would be removed so that at least some kind of a social distancing is there, even though not 1 or 2 meters between the two seats. Touchless doors. Events, I expect many of them to go virtual. So you might find in another 3 months virtual meets happening rather than trade fairs happening in different cities. Now coming to the employees or staff in travel companies, right? So there are some things what management decides, where whether they can actually do work from home or not, go to office or not, and so on, right? But there are individual controls also, or I can have some kind of a self-discipline where as an individual, I might go to a hotel and expect certain kind of a hygiene which I never had thought of earlier, right? So who slept on that bed last and when? What was the time difference? Because Airbnb has come out with saying that host cannot accept a new booking. There should be a minimum gap of 72 hours after the last checkout and so on. Use of mask, I'm sure, will be mandatory, or whenever we step out, you yesterday I read about a company which sanitizes tours and activities, Travel. So things are bound to change, and it is an inevitable, and more so in the travel industry. But we should also take into consideration loss of jobs across industries, right? So whether it is tours or activities or events or trade fairs, I think economies would be so badly ahead that it'll take time to recover. In what manner, it would be very difficult to gauge what will happen, but we should be ready. First of all, first we need to survive and then think of a revival and then growth.
Sure, thank you, Narayan. So this was a start to understand, the various viewpoints. Now, coming on to the topic, which is very relevant to all of us right now, is the change in modus operandi of travel business. So, having said that, there are a lot of changes which are coming. Travel trends will be changing, travel behavior will be changing. So, what kind of change in travel business we foresee going forward, maybe post COVID? How are they going to adapt to these changes? So, want to take first bite from Jay again, Jay Chandra.
Yeah, so I think this time I'll start with MySpace, right? So what we are seeing right now in Mice is 100% of the events have moved to virtual. And then what's going to happen is even after things open up, you're going to have hybrid events, right? Which is basically physical events plus, a virtual component, right? As we talk right now, there are companies that are building their, virtual events divisions, right? And, these are companies that, we are working with currently, right? And then what I also want you to understand is virtual events has not started just after COVID, right? So this had started because the economy had already started slowing down, say in the last 9 to 12 months, right? So we had seen a change, right, where we saw that budgets were coming down and people figured out that they can get the same ROIs in virtual events, right? So even though we are say event technology company, right, and the core of our business came from physical and hybrid events, what we saw is virtual events were starting to take off. So we started building the products that would meet this demand, which we figured sooner or later is actually going to even overtake say the physical events, right? So then what's happening now is with all these completely virtual events, our customers are telling us that their customers, right, who are paying them, they are figuring out that they're getting higher ROI, the same benefits at the same fraction of the cost of a physical event in a virtual event. So they're telling us, you know what, even if lockdown ends, these guys are going to ask us, for these, virtual and hybrid events, right? The other big trend that you might start noticing once the lockdown comes away is that, like we discussed in the previous section, you're only going to have, domestic travel in the first phase. So what's going to happen is if you have, say, a large event like maybe CES, right, you can't have 100,000 people congregate in one place, right? But what if you actually had something like an equivalent of an IPL fan park, right? In say Bangalore, in Seattle, in London, right? So there you are able to combine the best of the physical events technology, right? The experience and what you get now from the virtual events, right? So I think that's going to be a big trend in if you want to organize a huge event, how are you going to go about it, right? And before we talk about more, I think what we need to see is this has already been done, right? So this isn't hypothetical, theorizing that's happening right now, right? So a couple of case studies that I can talk about is Collision Conf in Toronto, right? They have about 30,000 people that attend. That's been converted completely into a virtual event, and they have not reduced a single penny out of their tickets, right? Because they're saying I'm giving the same value as my physical event. Practically Perfect PA is another European event series where their virtual events make about 8 times in revenue as their physical events, right? So this has already been done, right? And now the second thing that you need to talk about is, your basics of running an event remains the same, right? Be it physical or virtual, right? You want to give great content, you want to give value to your exhibitors, sponsors, you want to be able to easily manage your event, right? And you should be able to generate, revenue, right? And all of this is possible with the technology that is available right now with the virtual event technology, right? So if you talk about MICE, you can have 3D booths, you can have walkthroughs, attendee networking, right? You can have AR, VR experiences, you can have viral marketing, right? You can have digital mosaics. We have also, an option of having 5D experiences, right? This is 5D experiences will come into play when you have these smaller physical events running in parallel, right? So here you're able to transmit touch and holograms and smell, right? Some of this is already being worked in Sarcon's R&D labs right now, but these are the things that are coming, and you need to be ready for it, right? Some other tactics, if you would ask me what you would want to do, is if you're running a virtual event, you're saving the cost of maybe the food that you would serve them, right? How about you send them an Uber Eats instead during lunchtime, right? Now you're saving on the venue time, right? So how about you mail them maybe a HoloLens headset, right? Because net you're still going to spend lesser than a physical event now, right? You're repurposing your savings, and then you need to start thinking about different types of events, right? How do I make a wedding virtual? How do I do product showcases virtually, right? So these are the things you need to think about. And then, if you talk about travel companies had already started building, their events divisions, right, for whatever strategic reason they had, but now they need to double down, right, and leapfrog events directly into virtual events right now, right, because that is the way out right now, right? And in the previous section, I spoke about Uber Eats and Amazon delivering your packages. What if these travel companies actually did that for the events, for the MICE events, right? And now the value they bring in is in terms of, say, the branding or the experience of the delivery, right? That your Uber Eats or Amazon cannot do, right? And then, what you can have. So, for example, right now Airbnb is having one of their products where they're doing virtual experiences of different destinations right now, right? So, if you say work with a tech company like ours, you can start doing that. And the reason you start doing that now is you're building your pipeline for your future when the lockdown starts coming out, right? And the last one is your pre-sale customer interaction, right? Even that is going to go completely virtual. As travel agencies right now, these two options you have. So one is your virtual events division. Second is you can also partner with virtual event tech companies and start upselling the products, right, and have your revenue coming, because it's better than zero, right? So that if you can weather the storm right now, when the storm is done, you are still left standing and you can build a great business from there.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Please correct me if I heard you right or not. You said the digital events are, you can get 8 times more profit than the physical ones, right?
Absolutely. So this is a case study by Practically Perfect PA, right? And if you want me to elaborate on it, right?
Maybe later, because I'm moving to Cvent now. So
right.
Moving on to Gokul, it's a very interesting fact he has shared that coming on to virtual events. So over to you, Gokul, for your views.
Sure. Look, any disruption or any adversity, of course, it has hit us hard, but then it also creates opportunity in some way. Like if you think about it, just look at the demographics now. Back in the day, we would realize that a typical mobile app at an event would get about 55 to 60% the download rate, right? And typically there are certain set of demographics that will be the last to adopt to a mobile app. And then you would see, like even in India, you would see that, senior citizens or, people who haven't had much exposure to technology, they'll be the last ones to download an app. But this adversity has forced us to go digital, right? So we are seeing so many people on their apps. Like I personally have had Zoom calls with my parents, and including my family and extended family, people who've never, logged into what a Zoom app is before. So now it's a time to leverage that. And how Jay Chandra rightly pointed out, people are pivoting events to virtual events now. Of course, the only thing that you will not get at a virtual event is the touch and feel aspect, is the human factor. But then people are spending a lot of money in creating immersive experiences. I think Jay Chandra really summarized the entire discussion, because people are investing in virtual reality, augmented reality, so that a person feels completely immersed at an event. I think the hardest part about a virtual event is the production can be done. You can send somebody a VR goggles, they can put it on, they can have an immersive experience. I think because they're sitting in the comfort of their homes or in their office, it's the engagement piece that's the biggest problem, right? Because when somebody is a captive audience at an offline event, it is still far more engaging versus when you're in your own house and you're distracted by what's happening around you. To get that level of engagement, that's the tricky part. So that's where the content creators need to be very smart. And speaking of which, that actually leads to a lot of new jobs being created, or new roles have been created that would have otherwise been ignored in the event space. Now, suddenly there is a high demand for, somebody who is the content writer at an ad company can now be used for an event, because now suddenly your online content has become the king, People who have experience on working on VR, AR, AI are now being offered jobs at an events company, because that's the way to go to. So there is that pivot. I'm not entirely sure about the ROI, too early to tell. But the good thing is, like Jai Chandra pointed out, it's a low investment and a low risk, right? Compared to the risk associated with an offline event, this is pretty low. And it does pretty much the same thing that you would expect out of a business event. It's just that if you're able to sort your engagement piece out outside the touch and feel, the deliverables are pretty much the same.
Sure. Thanks, Gokul. I mean, business diversification is much needed. I think most of us have got that message for that hotel chain who is diversifying the business with this existing manforce, maybe putting some hygiene solutions or delivering food also from a five-star hotel. So that's what time demands. Now coming on to Dhruv. Dhruv, you have been working with some MICE companies at large. So what changes do you foresee in the business?
See, as far as MICE, I mean, my domain of knowledge is specifically in meetings and incentives. I mean, Gokul and Jayachandar have elaborated well on the changes they envisage with conference and exhibition. As far as incentive players are concerned, what I do see happening, at least in the near term, is a lot of them exploring alternative business models. So, I
think we lost Group.
Yeah, I think some connection problem. So I would like to take.
I think let me just build on what Dhruv
Yep.
was saying. Maybe
you.
I think I understand what he's talking about. So if he's talking about alternate business models, I think that's the trend that we've seen, that people have to adapt with these times. Like, because I think when these drastic steps happen, you either become obsolete or you adapt, you're agile and you adapt with the moving times. Like what we've seen with a lot of our agencies, people who were very focused on audiovisual production and executing an event, typical agencies who would work with an in planner, they're now pivoting to becoming the aggregator of what it takes to run an online event, right? So they're the ones who would bring in a technology to webcast an event. They're the ones who would bring in the hardware. They're the ones who are going to bring in the VR goggles. They're the one who are going to bring in content writers. So now they're packaging their solutions differently so that they can create, a turnkey solution for their end clients. So if they don't adapt with these changing times, because they're going to become obsolete, because nobody can predict really what the future entails. How long is this going to take? Now you want to move ahead with the times, otherwise you're just going to hit obsolescence. So it is very important to like I said, be agile and adapt with the changing times.
Sure. Thanks Gokul for covering all these points. I think Dhruv was sharing the same. So moving on to Jay, I think you are also working with some MICE companies at large. So what is your quick bite on this? Over to you.
I would completely agree to what Judge and the already mentioned. You have to keep it very simple. 2 words: digital and virtual. That's the game plan. That's the game changer for the entire industry, for the travel industry. Now, think about it. We have been, what these companies are doing so far. They have been pitching to their companies with some paper, with some PPTs handy, right? And now think about it. You are pitching the same thing with a virtual travel, virtual tour. Maybe think about it. With the entire sightseeing is being presented to you with a virtual walkthrough. So that's the game changer, obviously. Digital and virtual thing we are talking about modus operandi of travel and MICE business. That's the game changer, of course, no question about it. Anything which you are doing manually is going to change, not for the just for the SMEs, for the entire industry, I would say. In addition to this, what I feel now, if you talk about India, people used to travel upon, focus on European countries and US specifically, because these countries are very much affected by the COVID-19. Now, the entire focus will be on countries like Slovenia, Cyprus, Zagreb, South Africa, Asian subcontinents like Singapore, Korea. This should be in focus, which is going to change the market again. In addition to this, if you talk about change in business model, I was seeing a online presentation, reward recognition of a company. It was going through the entire R&R and the award functioning. Award session was having, they were going through the entire online. So that is again a game-changing thing, which we have seen before for the very first time. So these are few things which I feel will be a game changer, which is a change in the how travel company operates.
So thank you, Jay. So moving on to Narayan. Narayan, I think you can present a bigger picture as far as the travel and MICE both are concerned. Over to you.
Okay. So basically, Jai Chandra has so well explained, and I think Gokul has summed it up so very well as regards events are concerned. But one factor one needs to consider is the tendency not to change, right? So people say that if you repeat the same thing about 21 days continually, that you get adapted to that kind of a lifestyle or anything. But especially in business meetings, I don't think face-to-face meetings or events will totally vanish. Yeah, maybe 50% would be virtual and 50% or some kind of a combination should work, right? Though I would love to have my hologram in an event and I would be able to go through a AR or a VR and so on. Right? Okay. So now coming to the leisure, I think only the essential travel will actually pick up in the next 6 to 12 months. And as Jay had already covered and Dhruv had also mentioned that road trips will go up, domestic trips would revive, pilgrimage would also revive first, but international trips, whether it is inbound, outbound, will take at least another 9 to 18 months to actually revive at 2019 numbers, I believe, right? So any travel company who's able to automate themselves, right, and or acquire some kind of a technology which is going to help them not only in surviving COVID, but so also adapting to the changes and reviving and growth. I think it's a long drawn process, and it should be a, a software which is seamless in the entire customer journey.
Sure. Thank you, Narayan.
I think it's a fair point. I just want to build on that, what Narayan spoke about, because I saw a few questions come in the chat as well. I think let's just all agree to the fact that nothing can replace the power of human connection. Okay, so we don't want to be fooling ourselves. This is only a mere substitution for the time being. This is about being agile and, like I said, adapting to the changing times. So of course we would want to get back to physical events, because that's where the juice lies and the power of human connection really kicks in. There are events like somebody was pointed out on the chat, like incentives and dealer meets. You cannot replicate that experience through technology. Like, of course you can create something immersive, but I don't think I can enjoy a destination sitting here in my house and doing a walkthrough of, let's say, Macau. So that part needs to be substituted with something else. Now, what is that something else? Is the voice of your customer or the voice of your audience. Now that's the part that you need to find out. And I'm sure with your loyalty programs, with your customer engagement, you would know that outside that, what's the next biggest thing that evokes a response that triggers a good emotion in your head. Is it a product? Is it a service that can be taken at a time? Or maybe is it just cash? I don't know. Like, these are just some of the options that I'm throwing off my mind. So let's all agree to the fact that they cannot be a clear substitution. But if you can get very close to that, let's say if you're looking at 100 and you can get to a scale of 70 and cover the other 30 with some other way of substitution, it's still a job well done, because I think we're all sailing in the same boat. It's not that there's only a part of us or part of the world that's really suffering. So it's all of us in the same boat. So let's see to what degree can we cover that journey together.
Sure. Thanks, Gokul. So moving on to next question, that having said that there will be a lot of changes in the travel space, people will be traveling differently, then how we re-engineer our travel companies? I mean, we can imagine there are, sitting in a travel office, there are 4 people in the operations office, there are 4 sales guys, there's one, boss of the company sitting inside, asking them to go out for sales, get some sales, operations is doing their work. So where do technology can play an important part in re-engineering the structure of the travel company? So starting with Jayachandar. Jayachandar, over to you.
Right. So I think like we discussed in the previous section, right? So when you talk about MICE companies, they would have to spawn a virtual events division, right? Focus on virtual and hybrid events, right? Now, if you talk about ground level tactics, right? What do you need for that, right? There are certain areas of expertise that you need to hire for, that you need to build your expertise in, right? Some of them, I can just rattle out right now. So one is, say, digital marketing, right? You need trained MCs, right, that can use the technology efficiently, right? You also need AV guys, right? You need the AV guys because now what you're going to do is, right now we are doing it, I'm sitting in my study room and, trying to talk to you. But, if you're actually trying to do, say, a CES or, or Davos level of event, this level of AV is not going to cut it, right? So I might actually have to have, an AV guy come to my house and do some setup for me, right? The branding, lighting, all of that, right? So AV guys would be needed there, right? And then obviously, the tech provider that you're selecting for your technology platform, right? That is again important, right? Now, just an add-on over here, right? Since a lot of these companies are going to require, these services, right? We at Sarcon have actually built a list of these service providers, so you can either get in touch with, Sachin from MICE Affairs to get access, or be added to this list, or you can contact us at Sarcon, right? So that's that, right? Now, the next part is, when you're talking about travel companies, again, they also need to focus on, their events divisions and probably directly jump into virtual and hybrid events, right? Second thing is you need to focus on efficiencies right now, right? Because your people are going to have lesser budgets, right? So you need to focus on your operational efficiencies. Your marketing should probably be on digital, right? You might not be able to, you might not want to do, the more expensive ways of marketing, right? Maybe physical posters and stuff like that. And then, your client interaction, pre-sales, like as Sachin was asking, this is probably going to become virtual, right? And when you're doing it virtually, you need to be able to showcase your products in a way that is on par or even better than if you were sitting with them in the same room, right? And there is technology available to do that, right? It's just that you need to get ready with it, right? And second part is, sales, right? How do you work on sales, right? So one of the things that, we do internally over here, right, is that, when the demand goes up for a product like this, suddenly overnight, right? So we have, an option for, say, simulated demos and stuff like that, right? And, we have the technology to be able to do that, right? I think there are, some other providers that provide it, separately, so you can check that out. That will be useful for you. Or, if you want an end-to-end solution, then, your event technology provider, if he is giving you, these options, right, that would be helpful. Then you want to focus on affiliate tracking, right? And that is, it's going to figure out the efficiency of your different, marketing campaigns, right? So if you have an event tech solution, that gives you, that sort of tracking, that would be helpful, right? Now, as travel companies, during the year, you did not get the time to focus on, newer technologies. So maybe, all the travel tech companies that were reaching out to you, maybe you should just, reach out to them and figure out what exactly do they have to, offer for you. Because we're hearing from a lot of travel tech companies that, during the year when everything was going fine, these additional efficiencies did not matter, but now they do more than ever, right? Now, Sarcon is predominantly focused on, events in the MICE space, but we had also released, a product for, the travel space because, there was demand for it, right? But you might have people who are only focused, on travel tech, so you might want to, check that out. So right now, what you want to do is you want to build the foundations of a great tomorrow, right? Build partnerships, and the last aspect is this is also the time for, us to show leadership, right? Leadership to our employees, leadership to our customers, in terms of how we behave, how we treat them, how we react when there is a crisis, right? And that's more from a philosophical point of view, right? The last thing that I'd just like to summarize is, again, very tactical, what you would require if you're looking to pick, technology, right? First thing is pricing is going to be very important now because your customers are going to have lower costs, right? But quality also needs to be high, and compliance also matters, right? So GDPR compliance is again very important. So you want to be checking that your provider has all that, right? And you also want the technology customized for your specific needs. When you did a physical event, you had certain things in mind for your branding, your IP. You want a technology provider that can customize it, for your specific needs, right? So you want to check that, right? And then, as event organizers, as EMOs, hotels, travel operators, there are technologies that are available that's going to help you make additional revenue, right? You want to, check into those aspects also. And you want technology that is easy to use for you, right? So I just want to tell you that most of the tech that is built, right, is very self-service sort of a thing, right? So even if you're a non-tech person, you will be able to use these things, right? And most companies are good enough to have a very good seamless onboarding experience for you. So don't be afraid of tech. And the last part, I think there's somebody who asked a question in the chat, right? What is my use if only tech is required? So I'd like to tell you that tech is only a very small component of your business, right? A tech provider does not have the expertise in sourcing speakers. We don't have experience in AV or promoting your events, or for that matter, even your brand, right, that you have with your audience. Tech providers don't have that, and they are also not interested in coaching business as such, because that's not in the model of tech providers, right? A tech provider would rather focus on, say, 1,000 companies, right, and just focus on their tech, while you, as the experts, focus on these areas of expertise that I just spoken about. That being said, you might also want to look at solutions that give an option for, say, white labeling, co-branding, and when you're signing agreements, you should have, say, non-circumvention clauses and stuff like that, right? So it's a very valid point. Somebody just brought up, right? How do I take care of my risks? And these are some ways you can do that.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Out of this, I just want to share. I attended one session last week, so that was something on the video technology. So someone pointed out that this would be the right time to make micro videos, maybe a 1-minute video. Maybe the top bosses of the company make a video giving their introduction about the company, what they sell, and send it across to their clients. So just wanted to share. I'm not a technology guy, so just wanted to share what I heard. So okay, taking another point from Gokul. Gokul, what's your take on the same? Over to you.
I think let me start with a little bit of a philosophical note, because what I realized being logged in my house for the last 40 days now, and is that I think all of us were in a rat race, and we still are. That's the beauty of it. Like, I think I really want this time to teach us something. Look, I think we've been trying to chase something, but now that Mother Nature has put a stop on us, it's really time to introspect, and that doesn't just apply to your personal lives, that applies to your professional lives as well. Okay, so like you speak to any event planner, any tour operator, anybody who is associated with MICE in any form, or just traveled in any form. If you ask them that if you had an extra day or an extra week to plan what you had to, would your event or would your travel or would your tour had been more successful? And the answer inevitably would be yes. Now is the time. This is the time when organizations should actually look back, because I think all of us are seeking a solution outside, whereas the solution is inside. There's so many inefficiencies that are present in our organization. There's so many things that we can act on right now that we're ignoring, and we're jumping to a conclusion that, look, let me find a solution on the outside. What if I could internally find that, my team wasn't trained well enough on certain products. Let me upskill my team. Okay. What if I find that out of all the business that I've lost in the last year, 73% of the business was because of these 3 reasons. And if I'm able to address these 3 reasons, next time when the market opens up, I'm going to be ready for it. Did I engage my customers better? Did I get a lot of repeat business for them? So I think it has to be a mix of both, but I think it always starts with introspection. Now that the car is not moving, it's going to be easy for you to change the wheels, and it's always hard to change the wheels of a moving car. So that's my first thing. Like, let's start with introspection so that you can be prepared for a better future, and in parallel you adapt to the changing times. Of course, going virtual with your events, learning all sort of new technologies, hiring the right talent. That's great, but that's still an external view. What's going to happen is 6 months hence, let's say, everything, it goes back to being normal. You're going to be on a bigger pile of mess. Not only did you not sort out your original pile, but now you've created something new and which you're totally unaware of. So it has to be a good mix. I hope, the entire audience here today and the message that goes out to the larger audience is that let's have both in place. Please introspect and find solutions on the outside. And I think the fusion will just ensure a better tomorrow, because all of us are sailing in the same boat, not that you are lacking out, any further. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Gokul. Very well said. So I think I'm trying to find out. Dhruv, have you joined?
Yeah, joined. Sorry, I had to join through. My link got broken. I think there's a problem.
Sure. Would love to hear from you as well. Over to you.
So I'm sorry, can you dovetail on this? I missed the question. Can you repeat the question? Really sorry about this.
No issues. Wait a minute. So basically, we were discussing about the re-engineering of the travel companies, what
Mhm.
changes they can, adapt in their regular culture, maybe to retain the clients or, regain the confidence of their clients, or how the business model can be reconstructed.
Okay, so here I would like to start at a very fundamental level. I think what needs to change first is giving equal weightage to customer retention as people give to acquisition and profits. That's already there. Acquisition and profits has historically been the focus area for all tour operators. But what I'd like to see happen is customer retention also taking the center seat. And when you do that, of course, it involves certain realignment of processes. Because why I stress on customer retention, I like to add that is because if you look at the current times, I do genuinely believe the companies that have a strong customer base are going to come out of this a lot faster. The ones who have not really stressed on building relationships, kept their existing customers engaged during this period of lockdown, for them, this whole period of pick up or a reawakening would only get extended. So by me saying that one should shift their focus, I'm just trying to speak in context of current realities. So when I say this, how they can bring about this change is a realignment of processes around these fundamental ethos. So for one example being, they can they can change their incentive structure. So current incentive structures of employees is linked to sales and revenue, right? So maybe they can add certain other metrics into the whole basket of of primary incentives. So it could be, let's say, a net promoter score, or customer approval rating, or turnaround time, for instance. In the same way, focusing on customer experience across all the three stages of travel, say pre, during, and post. In the same way, stressing on upgrading the skills of their existing employees. So providing soft skill training. I know everyone talks about destination skills, but I go ahead and say, maybe this is a good time to look at how they can upgrade their soft skills, negotiation skills. These are all important tools that will set them up for success going forward. Also, another very important aspect is now it's high time tour operators also look at how the decision making is more data driven as opposed to feeling driven. Because I've seen in a lot of cases, a simple example being, you have two executives, both of them performing at an equal level, but then you have one employee in the company who's the one who ends up making the most noise, and he's the one who gets noticed. So as opposed to that, when they look at data and they realize, okay, this maybe they're both at the same level, but then this one guy is probably has a higher conversion rate, or is delivering the same output in a far more efficient fashion, then that person can be encouraged. He can be he can be asked to shoulder more responsibility, and therefore the whole process becomes more efficient. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on how they can go about re-engineering their process.
Sure. Thank you, Dhruv. I think I need to take a quick bite from Jay also. Jay, can you hear us? Jay with J-Y.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, Sachin, I can hear you.
Okay.
So, yeah, we are talking about re-engineering the travel company. I think that's a very, very important question. And as we all know, the utmost important thing comes in picture now is social distancing. I have seen a lot of company already floating, advisory about how to maintain the social distance. With that being said, the very first thing now comes in picture is, why do you go to office now? We always have that option to work from home. And we all know that this option is working perfectly fine. For last 40 days, I myself, with a team of 120 people, we have been sitting down at home and operating with our 100% efficiency. So I do not see anything which has hampered to my productivity or to my team productivity working from home. So when we talk about re-engineering about travel companies, I have seen sales people traveling from Noida to Gurgaon. They're spending like 2.5 hours traveling for a meeting. They don't have to do it now. Technology has given us that power. We're talking about virtual trips. We're talking about everything going online, virtual meetings and so on. So this gives us a this challenge gives us an opportunity, I would say. If you talk about pitching the plans, packages for travel companies, you have to think this way. We generally pitch for a package for like 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days. Why not pitch for 1 to 2 night trip? Possibly you can come up with some packages which is location based. For example, if you are residing in Delhi NCR, you could only be targeting a radius of 150 kilometers, not more than that, because now then you're very sure about the local condition, the medical condition, and so on. So that gives advantage for the travel companies to plan your to rework on the packages based on certain things.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Jay. Moving on to
Yeah, and I
Narayan.
also feel,
Okay.
yeah, I would add in a couple of more points here more, which is about if you come to the sales pitching part, uh, as we have to make sure the sales people should be aware of the technology. They should be well trained, as Gokul mentioned about the training. The sales people should be well trained about the destinations and the new packages. That's very much important as well. That's pretty much from my side, Sachin.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Moving on to Narayan
Yeah.
for his inputs as far
Sure.
as this question is concerned.
Sure,
Over to you.
Sachin.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should deeply look into a travel business more deeply because whether it's a small travel agent or a travel agency or a medium or a large, my experience, I've worked in all such companies. So out of my experience, one is you would all agree that there's cutthroat competition and extremely thin margins, right? So the fact remains that right now, more than the technology, it is a question where a business owner should actually think on how we are going to survive COVID-19. Whether it will take 3 months or 6 months, you do not know about it, right? And even you should also take into consideration the fact, so even with the largest of travel companies, unfortunately, even today, many of the processes maybe not at the front end for customers, but at the back end, or especially for holidays, are done manually as on date, or if they have applications or tools, they are so disparate and they work in silos. So there's nothing seamless about it. So there's a lot of scope and potential, but how many of the travel companies currently would be able to afford technology? So the most critical part is affordability of technology, right? And now coming to now supposing I am a travel agency owner, I would really deeply look into my expenses and costs currently, right? So the most is on staff. The second is based on rents that I pay for one office or several of the offices, and the office and the other infrastructure, right? So my concern would be on whether I have that kind of a runway for the next 3 or 6 or 9 months. So one that is more important on for a business owner to think on how we are going to survive and whether the technology, if they adopt, how it's going to help them in achieving these three things. One is affordability, that people can actually work remotely or work from home and also have better margins. So that is, better margins would only come from better buying. So will technology give you a scope for better buying? So these are the three considerations that a travel business owner needs to consider.
Sure. Thank you, Narayan. So, I mean, just out of this, I got a question that everybody is looking forward to domestic market. That with the first one, and everybody is getting ready to jump into that. But do we think that already domestic is a market where online companies are enjoying a bigger market share already? And do you think technology, I mean, this the right time for travel companies to go to that level, maybe from a smaller level, to put their products and services online, because there are a lot of offline operators as well. So I'll combine it with my last question of the day, which is technology to the rescue in the lockdown. I mean, do you feel there are some options available? I mean, more or less has been covered. Still, I'll give this option to all the panelists, whosoever wants to take this question, and can share his points. Over to everyone. So let me know who wants to speak on this.
Sure, I think I'll take it in the same order. Right? So I think what I'll break this down into two sections, right? Mice and travel, right? So when you talk about mice, now, like Mr. Narayan said, you want to be looking at a tech solution that is end to end and seamless, right? And that is available in the market, right? So that's one. Now, when you talk about mice events, you break them down into pre-event, during the event, and post-event, right? So when you talk about pre-event, the kind of technology that you're looking at is a single platform to say promote all your events, to track all your metrics, right? You should be able to create the website for your event. You should be able to collect registrations, right? So that's one part of it. Now, the same platform, if you can actually use it also to virtually meet with your customers, right? To showcase the experiences, right? As demos in a controlled way, right? Then, that's taking it to the next level, right? So that's possible. And then similarly, you're using now technology to reduce the number of physical sales calls that are happening, right? You can have simulated control demos, right? While you can have a live Q&A, right? So you can actually save the bandwidth of your, your sales staff, right? You can, the same number of sales guys can, service a lot more people, right? So, when everyone is facing budget issues, these are things that might be helpful. And then again, if you have not invested in, say, CRMs and things like that, right, to control your sales force, that might be a good time to, look in over there, right? When you talk about during an event, right, the possibilities, as I mentioned, say in the first section, is like, you can have 3D booths where you can have options to meet representatives from a particular booth or brand right then and there, right, through a video interface, right? You can have virtual 3D venues, right? That simulates a real venue, right? But it's not necessary to have a 3D venue every time, right? You can have a 2D venue also, and like Mr. Narayan was saying, if budget is your constraint, you can have a simpler experience, right? You can have walkthroughs of your products. Attendee networking again can be facilitated. Then, as my colleague Gaurav was mentioning, your attendee experiences, right, in terms of the engagement, the attendee engagement can be brought up with focused specific gamification, stuff like polling and stuff like that, right? Then AR, VR, we've already spoken of. You have an option for having, say, digital mosaics where one, you are promoting your event through virality, and second is you will basically be able to say maybe do some branding with respect to a particular brand or a location, right? So what digital mosaics are, possibly you might just want to Google it, right? I don't want to go into the details of it. And then when you're talking about parallel sessions, backstage access to speakers, right? All those things can also be done, right? Now during your event, right, when we are talking about parallel physical events, similar to your fan parks, IPL fan parks, you can have 5D experiences, right? So for example, if a Marriott is doing an event across its hotels in Bombay, they can showcase their hotels in Hong Kong, where you sit inside a pod and you have experience of the smell, the temperature, right? And maybe even the feel of the fabrics, and all of that can be recreated, right? So now what you're doing is, instead of getting everybody to Hong Kong or Macau, you're basically having people in Bombay, people in Boston, right? All of them having these smaller events happening at the same time, where you're having this 5D experiences that are happening, right? And post event, you want to build a year-round community, right, for your sponsors, because that's what is the name of the game, right? When you're doing events, you're basically doing a marketing activity for your customers, and if you can build them a year-round community, then you hit it out of the park, basically, right? And that kind of was not possible if you did not use technology in physical events, right? And then post-event, using all these technology that I spoke about in the pre-event phase, you build your pipeline, for more customers, right? Coming to the travel space, the travel technology, again, like I said, we are not the travel experts, even though we build something. Maybe some of the other panelists can talk about travel tech, but The stuff that we had basically built would, focus on stuff like, being able to easily collect payments online, right? Being able to take registrations of, your travelers. The attendee should be able to see their itinerary maybe on a mobile app or a web app, right? If you want to make tour specific choices, right? If I have a dietary specification, right? Or I have any other kind of choices that I can make in a tour, it doesn't have to happen through emails back and forth and, you are going mad and pulling your hair out. It can happen through a simple app, right? So that's something you want to look at. And then, during the course of, your customer journey, when you want to communicate with them, you can communicate using push notifications, right? Because push notifications have, say, an open rate of about 85%, whereas, say, emails have an open rate of about, I think 5 to 6%, right? So that can be done. Now, when you're having a tour package, right? People get in and get out of your, buses and stuff like that, right? How do you keep track of it, right? You can easily, check in those people, check them out, right? All of that is possible, right? Emergency contact information, right? Maps, key information, all of that can be put inside a web app or a mobile app, right? And lastly, you can monetize this, right? So because you have created a digital interface, right, that people are going to use before and during the event, you can actually get local businesses to sponsor, this technology that you have actually created for your people. So effectively, not only will you recover the cost that you have put, but you'll actually end up making a profit on, using technology like this, right? So yes, that was my piece.
All right. Sachin, I'm really sorry, but I've got bad connectivity. Before I go off, I think I should say my bit, right? So,
Sure.
not to sound immodest, but so basically, at Innowayt, we have been building it for the travel community almost past 2 years, 2 years to be precise. And without any marketing cost or single dollar of marketing spend, we have got about 1,200 customers from 38 countries. And for the travel trade, it may not be suitable for 100% of the travel trade, maybe around 80% it would be useful, or probably a bit more. That till May 30th, we are giving it free of cost without any charges. So this gives an opportunity for everyone to test the system out, get an online demo for it, and so also upload all the packages and see how it works for them.
Okay, thank you, Narayan. Now, Gokul, over to you.
Yeah.
What's your take? Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So first of all, I think all of us first need to decide what is the objective. What is it that we want to do? Because of course, let me give you a simple answer. If you think it can be done, there is a technology that can do it. Or if not, it can be built. So let me, I don't want to overwhelm the audience with, like 15,000 different things that we could do at an event or at a travel company. I think the first and foremost thing is you identify what the objective is. What is it that you want? And the simple answer is there's a technology to cater to that need. Now, whether you can afford it or not is going to be my second answer. Like for a travel company, if I was a travel company, what I would do is I would start focusing, like I said, in my initial part, introspecting. So I would spend my money on, let's say, digital marketing, search engine optimization, things that I did not look at first, creating some sort of top of the mind campaigns. Like I've been receiving campaigns from Go Ibibo, because I do book my tickets a lot with them, and they're gamifying my experience. Like every now and then I become a part of a nurture campaign where I'm supposed to do something, where I'm supposed to interact with them. Clearly, they know I'm not going to be booking tickets, but they are making sure that they stay top of my mind, and they stay relevant in my mind. Right. So I think that's a bigger thing. As far as designing travel and tour packages, you guys are right. When countries do start opening up borders, they open their internal borders before they open their foreign borders. Right. So with domestic travel start, I think people are going to pivot towards more of a private and a customized bespoke travel. They would want to travel in smaller known groups, let's say with family. And I think the key driver here would be around safety, sanitization, and hygiene. Of course, cost will obviously be a comparison, but I think in the way in the way the travel and tour operators reach to the market, I think the bigger communication piece has to be how safe and secure their trips are, and how private their trips are. Because I don't think I'd want to be in a situation where I'm surrounded by 150 people in a bus, right? So that's the bigger play. And as far as technology is concerned, I think let's all admit that technology is the way to go forward. I'm not saying it is the panacea, but it is the means to go to another level. technology is always the means. It's not the answer. It's the journey. So please remember that technology is always the journey. Like events technology cannot replace the power of human connection, but can it foster the power of human connection? The answer is yes. So for people who fear that technology is a huge cost, let me give you a perspective. For an event, a technology to power an event, like what Jai talked about, pre, ad, and post, can be as low as the cost of a coffee break per person. And this is not anecdotal. This is based on the multiple thousands of events that we do every year, right? And secondly, like Mr. Narayan pointed out, a lot of SaaS companies like us, we're giving away free trials. So you come in, you try the product, and if you like what you see, that's when you pay. And all of us are sensitive to these times. So a lot of SaaS companies, what they've done is they've created deferred payment plans. So I'm not saying it's going to be for free, for sure. There's nothing in the market that's for free. But assuming the sensitivity of this times, what companies started to do is they take a very small investment right now for you to get started, or they take no investment at all for you to get a free trial, and then defer your payment plan out. Because I think, like I said, this is the time for introspection. This is a time for self-investment as well. Do I take some time to upskill myself, upskill my company, so that, when the times are on the right side, I have everything ready, I'm ready to fire. So that's where I think my head is at right now. And that's the pattern that I'm seeing in the market.
Sure. Thank you, Gokul. Any other panelists? Jay? Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a few to add. So, since this is the end of the panel discussion, I would like to leave people with 3 questions to think about. Because fact of the matter is, there are n number of technologies out there, as Gokul very articulately outlined. But what technology is relevant to you is the real question. And for that, for you to come to that conclusion, you have to ponder about what is your value proposition and what is it that you bring to the table. That's one.
Yeah.
Second, what should be your priority other than profits? Because profits, everyone's looking at profits, right? No question about that. And as a business owner, that should be your focus area. Third, how can I achieve this and keep my costs down at the same time, right? Once you have these 3 questions outlined, then you can kind of figure out what kind of technology piece fits into your overall proposition. Needlessly, process has to be outlined from step 1. This is a good time. Lockdown is giving you 2 months of basic sabbatical. You have literally nothing to do but to think and plan and really outline your processes going forward. Use this time wisely to set up those processes, with a clear objective in mind, and see what technology really fits in. As far as Travelexic is concerned, we are a technology which is purely focused on customer experience. I mean, as far as the MICE end is concerned, we work with incentive operators. We also have a separate lead to repeat solution, which is primarily meant for tour operators. Again, both these solutions somewhere tie down to customer experience. So if that is what your objective is, we are happy to give you a demo. We are happy to, in fact, we have certain, like other SaaS solutions, we are offering certain deferment plans. You can try us out. There's very little risk. There's actually a good time to kind of experiment. If I were you, I'd be going around, I'd be experimenting and really trying to figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And and on that note, I'd like to end it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dhruv.
Right. I still feel the points which Gokul mentioned, I would agree to it. And we have been doing the same thing. We have been offering, I see people, doing a lot of manual work, taking print out of the itineraries and so on. So we kind of make the life easy for that. There is a lot of expense, I would say, involved in, getting printing, getting the things printed, manually carrying it and so on. For that matter, we already have a mobile application for travel companies. So they have the entire interface for a user or for a tour partner, to handle the entire application. In addition to this, how technology has come to a rescue, like we have proposed a few options like CRM, video conferencing, town halls, mobile app, webinars, virtual trips we were talking about. So these few technology things definitely, comes as a rescue for the travel company with the help of technology. For the government side, I would say self-check-in at airport. That's something which is very much possible. It is a bit expensive thing, time-consuming thing, but yes, that should have been done by now. Again, coming to digital visa option, there are a few countries as of now who have still not given an option of digital visa. That could be one of the things we should be looking at.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you, Jay. Thanks, Jay. So I think more or less questions are covered, but I would like to take few questions from the chat box. One I like, the first one is, how will live events change after the COVID-19 is over? As companies will have reduced manpower for sure because of social distancing. So how event technology can help companies to execute the events with lesser manpower? So open to all panelists who wants to take this question. Gokul, would you like to take this?
Sure. Let me just read the question again.
Yeah, this is from
Okay.
Charan
So it says,
Bhavya.
yeah, how live events will change after. Okay. Okay. I think I think what Charan means by reduced manpower, my guess is because maybe, what we've heard in the market is there's a lot of furlough, there's a lot of laying off because, companies are running out of business. But I think companies are also sensitive of the fact that the kind of roles that have been laid off would obviously be the ones that, are I'd say the kind, or probably let me put it in a better way, the kind of roles that people retain are the ones that are the most indispensable, because maybe, somebody who leads the content, somebody who leads creation, those are the kind of that are roles are retained. I think it wouldn't be as difficult to execute because as far as the brain share is concerned, you'll still have people in your organization to be creating the format of an event. As far as the last mile execution is concerned, I actually feel the opposite. I just feel that there's going to be a plethora of talent available because there's so much of rotation that has happened because of COVID. There's going to be a lot of people who will be willing to latch on to that job and execute it well. So I feel that, for a last mile execution on an event, hiring an event agency or hiring temp staff, I don't think that's going to be as difficult. But for any sensible company right now who is looking at forward investing, I would retain the critical and key positions for now, so that, when the time is right and I'm ready to fire, I should have the right talent pool available so that I can immediately create content and start, running my engine.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in over here, right? So I think I agree with what Gokul said. If you're looking at some tactical advice right over here is if you just break it down, where exactly is your manpower going to be used in, right? So one is, say, during your event, handling your check-in and stuff like that, right? So if you are actually having trouble with manpower, so I again want to step back and say that in connection to what Gokul was saying is that you're going to have new roles that are going to be filled, and existing roles that come lower in the chain, you might want to start automating it with technology, right? So you're basically moving up the chain in terms of the value add, right? So when you talk about, say, the on-site registrations that happen and stuff like that, right? So you have software that can do an auto check-in for you. You save people right there. If you talk about your sales staff, we spoke about the simulated demos that are there, right? If you talk about your marketing support staff, you have chatbots that can reduce the manpower over there, right? Now, if you talk about, say, the surveys and pollings that you do, right? Many people in India are still doing it, manually, right? That's manpower again, right over there, right? You can do it with an app, or a mobile or a web app, right? Last one is, say, if you're looking at registrations, again, you don't want many people are taking registrations, exhibitor bookings, sponsor bookings. They do it online. Somebody calls you, then you note it down, he sends you the money, and then you call him back up and all that. That's manpower, right? So if you can handle all of that online, you have online exhibitor booth booking, right? Online sponsorship packages, right? All of that is going to save you time over there. And then lastly, as Jay had mentioned, the J with the Y, that you can save a lot of cost on your printing that happens, right? You can have a paperless event, right? Because now we're all trying to become eco-friendly, go green, and all of that, right? So all of that is possible with the technology available right now.
All right, thank you, Jay. So there's one question which was started in when we started this session, was from Nayaz Noor. Question for the panelists is, the ICC 20 World Cup 2020 is scheduled for October-November 20 here in Australia. So what are Indian MICE companies currently thinking about it? It is likely not going to take place due to social distancing. So viewpoints of the panelists would be useful. Any takers of this question? Narayan, would you like to take this?
Yes, Sachin, I would like to answer on this. I have been talking to a lot of travel experts, and to my understanding, the MICE companies in India, they are very much confident that this thing would be happening for sure, because Australia is all prepared, all set for the to overcome with the COVID-19. So yes, their preparation is completely on with the Australia World Cup.
I would
All right.
not hazard any guess right now.
All right. So we really look forward that these kind of events come back as soon as possible so that the business is regained as quickly as possible. So I don't feel there are more questions left. Still, anyone is having more questions, they can email it to me at sachin@miceaffairs.com. So we'll forward it to respective panelists to get an answer for you. And in case someone of your friends missed this episode, we'll be uploading this on YouTube channel of Mice Affairs. So you may check that after 12 hours or so. And here is the formal announcement of closure of this session. We all have your email IDs and we'll share the keynotes over your email ID very soon. And thank you all the panelists for joining this session today. A bit off the road, but on the technology, which is very much required in the coming days. And thank you everyone for joining this session, and see you soon in some other session. And
Thanks, Sachin, for organizing.
just
Thank you,
thank you,
Sachin.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
thank you, thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
for your time.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.